Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third episode of The Clinch. I'm
Fourth.
Justin Peck. We got Keith Robert as always. Today on the show we have David. Um,
Hello,
last
everybody.
last week we had Jay Martin on the show. Jay did a great job. Thanks for being on. I'm going to kick it over to David, and he's going to tell us how he got into MMA, and then we're going to hop right into the Fight Pass card. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, first off, I want to thank you for having me on this great show. It's I've been a fan since, as Keith said, this is episode 4 because I listened. There it is. I was always a huge fan growing up of wrestling, WWE and WCW, and then I would always see guys like Ken Shamrock, and they would say, the world's most dangerous man, and he would come out with UFC gloves, but they never said he was a UFC fighter. They always said he was just like a cage fighter. And then, so I would always see him and Dan Severn, and I always wondered where these guys came from. And then I thought I have a theory of where I figured it out. WWE Monday Night Raw was on Spike TV from 2000 to 2005. Ultimate Fighter premiered on Spike in 2005. So I'm assuming I had to be watching WWE because they were doing promos for the Ultimate Fighter. I said, hey, this looks like interesting. I was at that age of 19 now, so I wanted something a little different. And then ever since that, I watched the first Ultimate Fighter, and I've basically just fell in love with it ever since. And going to some pay-per-views and all that stuff, it's like now wrestling and MMA are basically 50-50 in my opinion. So that's how I kind of fell in love with the Ultimate Fighter and MMA and the UFC. So that's basically my little story.
Very cool. Yeah, you're right. It does seem like they're tying in together more and more, especially with McGregor's little war on words.
Yeah, that offended every single person in the roster.
And I don't know if you guys noticed, when he got into the cage versus Diaz, he walked around the ring like Vince McMahon when he first got in, swinging his arms and everything. I thought
somebody
it was great.
made like a GIF of that, and it was like the best thing because they had the music going. It was like the perfect scenario.
Hey, yes. So, Justin, me and Dave have a pretty cool story how we became friends. For anybody who doesn't know, we actually know each other instead of just on the internet. I went to a UFC. I usually watch with a bunch of friends, and I went to a Buffalo Wild Wings. A bunch of my friends went around, so I went to Buffalo Wild Wings all by myself. And there was this guy, Doug, and this guy, Mike, sitting next to me, and they were talking to each other, so I assumed they were friends. And then somehow we started talking, all three of us, and we find out that all three of us were at the fights watching MMA all by ourselves. So we were like, "Oh, how funny!" Then the very next UFC, I don't know, I don't remember what card it was. I don't know, maybe Dave remembers. I don't remember.
No, I can't remember.
What was it?
I can't remember what it was.
Oh, so I see the guy Mike again, and I'm sitting on the other side of the bar, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go say hi to him. And then a chair opened up next to him, so I started sitting next to this guy Mike, and Mike was sitting next to Dave, and they were talking, so I assumed they knew each other. Come to find out, Mike went to Buffalo Wild Wings to watch the fights again by himself, and then Dave went there by himself. And we're like, how funny is that? Then the next one, I go again for the third time with no friends want to watch the fights. So I go a third time all by myself. I see Mike, I see Doug, and I see Dave, and I go, hey, we're all by ourselves. Why don't we get a table? And we've been pretty much doing tons of UFCs that way now. We're all friends. We exchange phone numbers, and we watch the fights together. Me and Dave went to the Boston card, the Cruz Dillashaw card in Boston. So, we've been friends ever since. He's really knowledgeable. He loves Charlie Brenneman.
Oh, the Sprainerd? You gotta love Charlie B.
So Charlie B and Ed Herman. So
yeah.
That's his two.
Well, we got on TV. Tell them when we got on TV. We were in the promo.
Yeah, that's true. We were on TV. We were sitting next to Tisha Torres and Aljamain Sterling. We had better seats than John Howard and Jorge Rivera. Derek Lewis. We had better seats than Derek Lewis.
Nice. That was pretty cool. That you guys just happened to be going to the same spot for all the fights. That's pretty cool.
MMA bringing people together.
All right, we're going to hop into the speed bag segment. Hopefully this week it'll go more like a speed bag and less like I don't know, something slow, a heavy bag. All right, we're going to hop right into Jeremy Kennedy with his decision win over Alessandro Ricci. Keith, one thought on that?
Well, Richie took the fight on short notice, so that kind of showed right away. The first round was pretty competitive, and then the second, third round, Kennedy took over. I kind of wish the fight was, I wish Richie had a full fight camp, but neither one of these guys are that big of a prospect. So Kennedy said himself that he's too small for the division. He's going to move down. That's about it.
Okay. Dave?
Yeah, both guys making their UFC debut in their home country. I have to agree with Keith. I also thought Kennedy had a nice leg sweep takedown towards the end of the second round. Other than that, it was just a lot of clinching, a lot of just trying to grab for position. I mean, I do agree with the decision, but we'll see where these two guys go from here. But Kennedy got his first UFC win, so happy for the guy.
All right, next fight on the card was first round knockout, Laprise over Gowdy. Keith?
It was a nice KO. Laprise got really good boxing. He's a pretty decent prospect. He won one of the Ultimate Fighter seasons. He had a really close fight with Ross Pearson recently. He said he's moving up. He missed weight for this fight, so he's going to be moving up to welterweight. So we'll see how he does. There's a lot of interesting matches at welterweight. So
Dave?
Trying to keep his speed bag.
Yeah, I mean, he was going back and he caught him, so he must have a whole lot of power, Laprise. And once he knew he hurt him, he just, just swarmed on him, never let him get back to, to a standing position, and just kept raining down blows. And first round TKO. So good for him. And we'll see where he goes from here. Like he was saying, he's gonna, adjust weight, and we'll see which UFC fighter they give him next.
All right, then we move over into the Fox prelims. There was only 2 on Fight Pass last week. We go into the Fox prelims. Felipe Silva, first round knockout over Shane Campbell. Keith?
Well, Felipe kind of making a name for himself. He's 8-0 now in the UFC. 8-0 total. He's got 7 stoppages. He won his UFC debut by knockout. The rap sheet on Silva was that he has massive power, but he's kind of a wild winger. And Campbell is the complete opposite, one of these point technical Muay Thai guys. And Silva just absolutely blitzed him. Beautiful knockout, good shots to the body. At 8-0, 7 stoppages, another name to a stacked lightweight division.
Dave?
Yeah, I agree with Keith. He had a nice left to the body, and then threw a nice right, and then followed up with a left right to the chin, and his feet gave out, and then he just kind of swarmed on him, and then like Keith was saying, it's undefeated. I feel like he could do something with the division, and now Shane Campbell, he's going backwards, but we'll have to look out for Felipe Silva in the future, see where he goes from here.
All right, the next fight on it. This one I'm going to go to you first, Dave. I'll let Keith do the first 3. I'm going to let you do the second 3 first.
Okay.
We had a decision win by Alessio De Chirico over Miss McClellan.
Okay, the first round was very competitive. I scored it for McClellan in the first round. I feel like he landed the nicer shots. But then the second round happened. McClellan got a takedown, and DeCirio, he reversed it and laid a nice left elbow to the top. And I thought he was going to finish because the referee was standing basically right over him, like another 2 more seconds with just shots. I felt like he was going to get finished. But then after that, McClellan showed a lot of heart. He kept getting takedowns late, but it wasn't enough to steal the decision. But it was a split, and I thought it was an interesting fight. I enjoyed watching that one for sure.
I scored it for Cheerio too. He was a guy who had a lot of hype going into this fight, and I actually think that the hype would die because Gary McClellan is an awful fighter. He's not a UFC talent fighter. The only reason I believe he's in the UFC is because he's from South Africa. If he was another fighter from America, I don't think he would have reached this level. I think they just, they like filling guys from other countries on Fight Pass cards and stuff like that. Toshiro, he's pretty well rounded. He has some pretty good strikes. When he reversed McClellan, he has some good ground strikes. He's an Italian fighter. All the Italians probably excited about him. One thing I noticed is he really faded. he was really sucking wind. Luckily, McClellan is even worse for sucking more wind, so Teixeira could win. But I'm sure Jay Martin was all excited about the Italian fighter, and yeah, he's probably somewhere playing bocce right now, talking about the Cheerio. But I'd slow the rolls. I actually think his stock, even though he won, I think his stock dropped.
All right, then the next fight on the card, Keith, you're going to make fun of me for the names. You know how I am with those. Kyle Bochniak with the decision win over Enrique Barzola. Dave?
I actually thought that Barzola did win this fight. I felt like, he was the Ultimate Fighter Latin America Season 2 winner. I felt like he did a little more. The third round, you can kind of go either way with it. Barzola was able to get the takedowns at the end of round 2. He had a nice slam. I mean, I know a slam could win a fight, basically, because we saw, Kimbo versus Houston Alexander, and that's one slam won the fight. But I want to see Keith's opinion on this, but I thought that Enrique definitely maybe won the first 2 rounds, but I mean, I think it was a bad decision, but we'll see what Keith has to chime in with.
Dave loves bringing up Kimbo. He's a huge fan of Kimbo. He used to run in Kimbo's posse down in Miami for the street. You used to set up the fights for him, right?
Oh, of course I did. Who do you think gave him the name Kimbo?
So, well, me and Dave were at the Boston fights, and Bosniak's a local fighter. He took the fight on 2 days' notice against Charles Rosa, and it was a really close fight. Rosa won. So I was rooting for Bosniak, but I scored at 30-27 Barzola. I thought he won all 3 rounds. I think one of the rounds, I can't remember which round it was. I thought it was fairly close. But I thought Barzola won. I was really surprised by the decision. I know we're going to talk about later on the Lausanne-Miller decision, and I'm sure there's going to be some controversy there. But I think this was the worst call on the card. I don't see how Bosniak won. He was very tentative. I thought Barzola was the aggressor. I thought he landed the bigger shots. I went to MMA Decisions, which is a great tool for websites. It takes people from all over the country. Anybody who submits a score, maybe hopefully one day we can get on there. Anybody does play-by-play and how they score it, and all 14 writers scored it for Barzola. So I kind of felt bad for the guy. I thought he clearly won. It's too bad.
Looking at some quick stats, when I see he had higher percentage of strikes, more strikes. The only thing it looks like he really lost on, he was only 1 for 9 on takedowns compared to 1 for 3, but you can't win a fight just by winning takedowns.
Hold on. Bosniak had 1 takedown and Barzola had 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to what I said last week. Stopping takedowns is not offense. It'd be like NFL giving points for sacking a quarterback or stopping a guy in the field. It's defensive. So really, to me, that means nothing. To me, it's 1 takedown to 1.
All right, next fight on the card, Smiley Sam Alvey versus Kevin Casey. Winner by 2nd round knockout was Smiley. How do you feel, Dave?
Well, it seems like every single card Sam Alvey's fighting on it. This guy fights every month. He seems like he's just dying to get on every single card. I actually really enjoy watching Sam Alvey fight. The last fight he beat up a Rhode Island guy, Eric Spicely, and before that he lost a terrible fight. It was against Thibodeau. But yeah, that was a good fight against Casey. He actually rocked him, knocked him down, and was doing ground shots, but then he wanted to stand up and still trade with him, which was, smart on his part, because then he eventually got the TKO win. But he's been looking pretty good lately, Sam Alvey. We'll see where he goes. 2-fight winning streak, both by TKOs and knockouts, and when you see him, it's always an exciting fight, and he always looks like he's having a great time in there, always smiling. So I enjoy definitely watching him fight.
Kevin Casey's an awful fighter. He's an awful fighter, and he's an awful human being. This is a guy that was at a jiu-jitsu tournament and got in a fight and went to his car and pulled out a gun at the jiu-jitsu tournament. I mean, this guy shouldn't be in the UFC. He's not a UFC caliber fighter, and we shouldn't have people like this fight in the UFC. I'm glad Sam Alvey beat him. Alvey, I mean, he's a decent fighter. He is what he is, but he's great on the mic. I mean, he's a guy that I love watching him fight because wonder what he's going to say afterwards. His post-fight interviews are some of my favorite things. If Demetrius Johnson or Rafael Dos Anjos or one of these guys had Sam Alvey's charisma, I think Demetrius Johnson, he hopes he gets 100,000 buys when he headlines a fight. If he had Sam Alvey's charisma, he'd probably at least get up to like 300,000.
I actually agree with that. I think he would be more of a star that the UFC needs if he had a little bit more personality to him. And if you put a guy like Alvey with Johnson's talent, that's a superstar, guaranteed.
What'd you say?
If you put the talent of a guy like Demetrius into the personality of Sam Alvey, I guarantee UFC has a superstar on their hands. That's a great point.
And Sam Alvey's wife won America's Top Model.
Good for him. That's why he's smiling all the time.
Yeah. She was there. She was in the background. I don't know. The next top model pictures are a lot different than real life, but good for him. Good for Sam. Good for Sam Alvey. I mean, hey, Sam Alvey is fighting at middleweight. He says he's willing to fight at light heavyweight. How have they not matched up Ginger Sam Alvey versus Ginger Ed Herman?
Oh, that's the main event on UFC Idaho.
Dave would be like, it'd be like picking between his kids.
Oh, of course. I couldn't watch it. I would be too heartbroken for either of them. It's a sad day in MMA if that does happen. And also, you just ruined my pick for UFC 205. Thanks a lot.
All right, we hop on over to the main card. First two fights on the main card, Keith, and I'll let you go first on the first two. Second two, I'm going to let you go first, Dave. First fight on the card was Jim Miller grinding out a decision over Lauzon. And only 16 seconds of control time for Jim Miller. What do you think, Keith?
Joe Lauzon's local. I want to put a little disclaimer out there. I've met him multiple times. Really nice guy. His brother is completely opposite. Not that he's a jerk, but his brother's a Eminem type, one of these white gangster types. And Joe is like computer nerd. Like you would never know he's a fighter. Like how they came from the same parents is crazy. Anyway, so I'm a little biased to Joe Lauzon. I always root for him. I thought he won this fight. I believe I scored it 29-28. I gave Jim Miller, even though Lauzon got the takedown first, I gave Jim Miller the first round, and then I gave Lauzon the second. I thought the second round was clearly Lauzon, and the third round was close, but I thought Lauzon won. Is it a complete robbery? No. I mean, it was pretty competitive. It was a lot closer than people were pretending. What was fascinating about this fight was, I mean, both these guys are, they're later past the. I mean, they're both young in sense of fighters. They're still I think they're in their early 30s, so they still have years left. But when you take in the toll, how long they've been fighting in the UFC, I mean, Joe Lauzon made his debut against Jens Pulver. I think he was like 20 or 21. He's been fighting in the UFC forever. Jim Miller, same thing. Both of these guys, I'm assuming they're probably, if not top 10, top 20 most UFC appearances. Joe Lauzon, I would have thought Joe Lauzon would have had the advantage in the stand-up, and I thought Jim Miller would have had the advantage with the wrestling. And it was actually the complete opposite. Jim Miller was really tagging Joe Lauzon on the feet, and Joe Lauzon got the takedowns and had a lot more control, had some good elbows on top. Like I said, I thought Lauzon won. I think he clearly won, but I don't think it was as bad as a scoring as the Barzola fight, the Barzola-Bosniak fight. The thing that really bothers me about Joe Lauzon is Joe Lauzon has always struggled with cardio. He's always been one of these guys who comes out gun blazing in the first and then kind of fades as the fight goes on. And he didn't this fight. He actually showed toughness, fought through. So for him to go to I think this is only his second decision in his UFC career, to go to a decision in a fight that I thought he wins and lose is I felt really bad for him. I went to MMA decisions. They had 25 of the 27 people scored it for Lauzon. So I think that right there should tell you something. I mean, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm just going. I don't know how many losses Joe Lauzon has in the UFC. He probably has, 16 wins, 9 losses. All right, so now he has 10 losses. I mean, he wasn't a title contender. Neither was Jim Miller.
Dave?
Well, this is a rematch from UFC 155, and both guys were coming off huge wins on UFC 200. Basically, Jim Miller beating Takanori Gomi, and then Joe Lauzon basically just manhandling Diego Sanchez. I know a lot of fans were thinking, oh my God, their first fight was completely bloody. was probably one of the most bloodiest fights I've seen in the UFC. So they're all like, "Great, we're gonna have another bloodbath. Both these guys are gonna be bleeding." So right there, that disappointed them. I agree. With Keith was saying that I thought Joe Lozon just did enough to win. I mean, I know his striking was not up to par, but his ground game it's always decent. But we'll see. Oh man, it's just kind of tough because I didn't think Miller did enough to actually get the victory. But now it's like, what do you do with these two guys? Like they've been around, they're grizzled vets. I mean, I just don't know where these two guys go from here. Keith, where do you think you match up Miller next, or what?
Well,
What
the
even blows
worst, the
on?
worst, the worst part is Joe Lozon. If he wins this fight, I mean, just running back. I don't think it was a disappointing fight. I thought it was actually pretty entertaining. I thought Miller made mistakes. Like I don't know what period. I think it was round 2, maybe, or round 3. I forgot which round it was. I thought he was winning the fight, and then he throws a kick and slips on it. So I mean, Lozon really didn't get a takedown. He just landed on top.
Yeah.
And why are you throwing a leg kick when you're clearly winning with the hands? And I felt like he gave that round away. Now you can't run it back. Miller's up 2-0. But if you had a win, Lozon won. I thought both fights were exciting. You could do a trilogy. It's not a Randy Couture, Chuck Liddell level trilogy that people want. But I mean, opening fight on or main event Fight Pass for the UFC 205. You got a guy from New Jersey, a guy from Mass. Neither one is too far from New York. I wouldn't be surprised, being that both these guys have been in the sport a long time. UFC tries. It seems like the big cards. They try to put a lot of the veterans on. That's why UFC 200. You had Joe Lozon, you had Diego Sanchez, Takanori Gomi, Jim Miller. Being that they're both close, I could see both of them fighting somebody at UFC 205 in New York. Who I wasn't really expecting to come up with somebody. Jim Miller versus Ally Quinta, maybe. I think that's an easy win for Quinta, but you have two local, Long Island guy, New Jersey guy, Joe Lozon. I don't know.
I think Ian Quinta's already on the card for 205. I think.
Well, they haven't announced anything yet for 205. So is he scheduled to fight? I'm not sure if he's scheduled to fight. He might be.
I think that's like the only fight scheduled right now.
Then cancel it. Cancel that and put Jim Miller in.
Because Keith said so.
I'm trying to get Joe Silva's job.
There you go. Next fight on the card, the lovely Paige Van Zant knocks out Beck Rawlings in the second round. Keith, break it down for us.
Yeah, Paige Van Zant's hot. But you know what? There's some pictures on the internet where Beck Rawlings ain't that bad either.
I agree.
I mean, Paige Van Zant, she's a star, and her stock was already high. I guess I didn't watch the season, but I guess on Dancing with the Stars, she had the highest scores in history. Somehow didn't win because she went against a deaf guy who was dancing. So obviously he was getting a lot of sympathy votes. I didn't watch. But so her stock was already high. I mean, she's just being good looking. That helps you. And she's young. She's like 22. She has that like sweet girl next door thing. She's super hot, but she doesn't know that she's super hot. That thing going.
The fight, Keith. The fight. How was the fight?
Oh! You want to talk about the fight? Oh. All right. I thought we were just gonna talk about how hot it's. The kick is awesome. So her stock, I mean, she's already stocked. She's doing the T-Mobile and all these different commercials. So the kick, now she has this crazy, beautiful kick. One of these, you're gonna see 10 years after retire when they're doing UFC highlights. They're gonna show this flying switch kick. That said, I thought she lost the first round. I thought Beck Rawlings was catching her when she was coming in. She was fighting completely different than I normally seen her. She's never been this outside, moving away, kicking kind of a girl. She's usually a pressure fighter. She's usually, they say, let's go. She's getting in your face and she's keeping pressure on. Kind of like Diego Sanchez in his prime. Kind of like times with Clay Guida when he was in his prime. Kind of overpressing you. And I didn't like this outside fighting. I mean, I think obviously the kick, I mean, what can you do? But her best fighting is when she's pressuring the person, overwhelming with volume, and getting the takedowns. Now she's, I wouldn't say a smaller girl for the weight class. But Beck Rollins, I mean, you just look at it. She looks so much bigger than Paige Van Zandt. She's got bigger legs, bigger arms. So that might have been a reason why they might want to try to slow her down. I mean, a win's a win. She's 22 years old. She's beaten Felice Herrig. She's beat Beck Rawlings. She showed how tough she is against Rose Namajunas. So I mean, I'm rooting for Paige Van Zandt. She mentioned our man Justin on Twitter, so we all should be rooting for her. But I see some holes in the game. But at 22 years old, she really shouldn't have been fighting at this level yet. She should have been fighting in Invicta, fighting lower class girls. So to be already at 22 years old and fighting in the UFC, and I think she just turned 22 because when they did the season on The Ultimate Fighter, she was under 21, so she couldn't be on the show. So I think she might have just turned 22.
Dave, your thoughts on the fight?
Well, I was very curious to see how she would come off because she would, like he was saying, she did Dancing with the Stars, and she wasn't even doing a training camp until this fight was announced. She was just living her life, and then once they announced the fight, then she started training for it. But so I wanted to see if there was ring rust. Well, she came out very strong. She tried to land that front kick right off the bat. But other than that, I feel like she was just very timid. She was just, or either timid or just trying to be very calculated, just picking what shot she wanted. But during that first round, she kept trying to go for the head kick. So you knew it was coming eventually. But then I think she called it, once she did land it in the second round, I think she called it like the kick the can style kick. And Beck Rollins is, pretty tough fighter in there, but she made her. I know the first round it was very competitive, but once she landed that kick, this girl, they're trying to make her a superstar basically because there's no other big females out there. Once Rousey left, they're trying to fill that gap really quick, so that's why she was on Dancing with the Stars. You get the appeal of normal people that are watching that show, and they say, hey, I want to see what she does outside dancing, and then you see her, and you're like, wow, she's beautiful. She can be a model, for Christ's sake. She practically already is. And now you're looking at her beat up women, and you're like, wow, I'm basically falling in love with this girl right in front of my eyes. So, I mean, it was a great win. After she lost to Namajunas, which was a hell of a fight too. I'm excited to see where they put her, and she can have a quick turnaround because that she didn't get too much damage in that fight, so they may try to steamroll this girl and put her on the next, maybe they'll put her on 205, maybe they'll put her on something else just to kind of get her as the new female figure because I think Dana White said Rousey's not fighting till 2017, so put the money on this girl and see where she takes you, basically.
She reminds me of the strawweight version of Gina Carano. She's got talent, but the looks is what makes her even more of a star. And I actually think at her age, I think they threw her to the wolves too fast. When throwing her to Rose Namajunas that early, I forgot who she wasn't supposed to fight with Rose. I forgot who she was scheduled to fight before that. And the person got hurt. I don't remember who it was. But now she's already fighting. She's already ranked in the top 10. Not in Sports Talk, but on the UFC rankings. She, I really think they could have started her off lower, kind of doing the Sage Northcutt type. We're fighting lower level talent, but to the casual fan, they don't know lower level talent from higher level talent, and got her stock. But now they're calling for fights with, say, like Tisha Torres.
They already fought once before, Paige and Tisha. And then Tisha won that.
Yeah, and I think Tisha would destroy her again. I'm trying to think some other ones. I mean, and Michelle Waterson is a fight that I think would make a lot of sense. They're both really good looking. Michelle is actually smaller than Paige. Waterson's pretty good jiu-jitsu, but her stand-up's not that good. I think Paige could win that fight. If Waterson won, now you got another good-looking girl that you could turn into a star. She got the Karate Hottie nickname, one of those catchy nicknames. What's Paige Van Zandt's nickname of fight? It's awful. It's like a horrible nickname.
12 gauge.
Yeah. 12 gauge. That's awful. She's gonna work. She's got to somehow pull in like the girl next door or something kind of nickname. Some kind of like I'm cute nickname.
To Dave's point about her being on Dancing with the Stars and bringing in a casual fighter, My mother watched that fight. Never, never watched UFC in her life. So, oh, Paige is fighting. I gotta watch that. So.
Oh, cool. That's cool. That's actually that's what they're hoping for. Now Justin's mom's gonna watch every page. But, she probably thinks every UFC is when a flying switch kick knockouts.
Yeah, right.
karate Kid style knockouts.
Oh, that must always happen. Next fight on the card, Anthony Pettis finally gets back in the win column with a third-round submission, actually, over Charles Oliveira. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, so the bleeding finally stops for Anthony Pettis. He finally picks up, after 3 tough losses in a row, he finally gets back on the win column. Me and Keith actually saw him when he lost that split to Alvarez in Boston, which was a pretty good fight. During the first round, I thought Pettis did enough to get that round, but then after that, it seemed like he was entirely gassed. Oliveira just kept coming forward. I know during that second round, Pettis threw a nice spin kick, and it looks like it brushed him on the arm, but it still got him in the stomach, and he just kept coming. That whole time, he was eating shots, Oliveira. He was able to get the takedown. The one thing I like to say that every time that Oliveira got the takedown, Pettis had a nice reversal and always wound up on top. So Pettis' ground game is still, it's maybe not the best, but it's still up to par to be in the UFC. But I thought Oliveira won that second round. He was controlling him on the back. He was just doing enough. He was landing the better shots. So right there, you gave it round 1. I gave it to Pettis. Round 2, I definitely gave it to Oliveira. And then the third round was pretty close. But then once he got that guillotine choke, which is the same choke that he beat Gilbert Melendez for and retained the title. But I'm happy that Pettis finally got the win. I don't know if there was such thing as how there's like the Madden curse. I don't know if there was like the Wheaties box curse, because ever since he was on that, he just went downhill. But I'm happy that Pettis got back on the winning track, and Oliveira, he's got nothing to be ashamed of. He put up a hell of a fight. He kept eating shots and kept coming forward, and he was tagging him against the cage. I think Oliveira's put up a hell of a fight, but I'm glad Pettis got the win, and then we'll see what happens with these two guys.
I thought it was a fantastic fight. I'm glad that Anthony Pettis is in this weight class. Anthony Pettis was becoming a star. He was starting to become a pay-per-view draw. I mean, you said the cover of Louise box. He's doing the T-Mobile commercials. Like me and Dave were at Boston. There was a girl behind us who was in love with Anthony Pettis, just hoping she'd be able to touch him, and so the girls like him. I mean, you got this, you got this flashy guy. When he became a pretty well-known name when he did the Showtime kick to Benson Henderson and then WEC. I mean, for a fighter who was in WC to get that much notice for a fight in the WC is impressive. I've been following Anthony Pettis for a long time. I became an Anthony Pettis fan when he fought in WC. He fought a guy by the name of Mike Campbell. The reason why that name probably doesn't seem significant to many people. Mike Campbell is actually from the town I live in. He's from Coventry, Rhode Island. We actually have some mutual friends. I've met a couple times. A real nice guy, big built. He had really good knockout power, decent underrated ground game. Blew through the local circuit. Big following here. And then he went to WEC and he fought his second fight in the WEC. He fought Anthony Pettis. And Pettis had some hype back then, but I thought Mike Campbell was going to beat him. And Anthony Pettis put on a show. Everyone always thinks that Anthony Pettis is this great striker, but I've always been more impressed with his jiu-jitsu game. He went against Mike Campbell, and he just put him through a gauntlet of submissions. He throw up a triangle. Campbell's a power lifter. That's actually what he's doing. He's turning into a professional power lifter. He has a brother-in-law who plays for the Patriots. This guy's huge now. He looks like Zach. So he would outpower out of him, and then Pettis would slip into a armbar. He'd get out of that. Pettis would immediately be into a omoplata, slip out of that, and then there's an ankle lock. He'd slip out of that, and he's in a gear. And it was just every time Campbell slipped out of one, instantly he'd be back in another submission. And that was it's really impressive fight. If you really want to be impressed with young Anthony Pettis, I'm sure you can find that on YouTube, or probably can find it on Fight Pass. You pay the $10, you cheap fucks. So Anthony Pettis. So then those body kicks in the first round that's Anthony. That's his well. That's what he's got to go. When he fought Edson Barboza, he seemed like he was fighting not to lose instead of to win, and that's not what Pettis has. He was the guy who would try these crazy kicks and push off the walls and switch kicks and Superman punches and all that. He showed me something because I agree with Dave. I thought he won the first round. I thought it almost got stopped. You could argue it was a 10-8 round. I didn't because at one point Charles Oliveira, I think he took down Pettis. So he had moments of decent offense in the first round. Second round, I can't remember who I scored it for. I might have scored it for Oliveira. I think that was the round where he had Pettis' back. Oliveira is a legit jiu-jitsu guy. And he's submitted some really good guys already in the UFC. And he had his back, and I thought that was it. I thought Pettis was going to quit. And he kept his calm. I agree with Dave. I thought he was looking gassed. I thought he was breathing hard. I think that is one big thing with adjusting down to the new weight class. But he showed heart. I mean, one thing they said about his fight with Rafael Dos Anjos, a lot of people said that he gave up when he broke his eye socket. He gave up, and he didn't give up in this fight. And to rally in the third round and get a nasty guillotine choke on that high level of a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt I honestly think Anthony Pettis just instantly put him into contention at featherweight. And what I wanted to ask is who would you guys want to see him fight next? If he definitely stays at 145, which he said afterwards he was gonna.
That's a great question. With it being his first fight where he looked good again. Look at a few names.
Well, I have that's one of my picks coming up, so I don't want to spoil it just yet.
Okay.
No.
All right.
But one quick thought: it's like Oliveira's a strong guy because those same leg kicks he was taking, they basically finished Donald Cerrone. So think about that. I mean, think about the power that he has. And he just beat him and just kept coming forward.
Yeah, think about how good his jiu-jitsu game is. He submitted Gilbert Melendez. He submitted Benson Henderson. He submitted now Oliveira. I'm assuming there's other guys I'm not thinking off the top of my head. So Pettis' jiu-jitsu game, and there's a guy at 145. I don't want to say his name, but there's a guy at 145 that I've been saying for a long time now. It's very susceptible to submissions. I'm not gonna say his name. Let's just say his name rhymes with Monner McGregor. and anyways, I think one fight I've been hearing a lot of people talk about that they want to see is Anthony Pettis versus Frankie Edgar. I don't know if that's the fight Dave's going to say later on. I understand why people want to see it. I mean, you got two guys, both been former champions at 155. I believe when I might be wrong. No, I'm right. When Pettis came over to the UFC from WEC as a champion, he won the title from Benson Henderson, the last fight in the WEC. I believe Frankie Edgar, maybe BJ Penn was still the champ, but I think Frankie Edgar was the champion of the lightweight division. So that was a fight that was talked about when he first came in, and it never happened.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't want that fight to happen. I would really like to see Frankie Edgar go down to bantamweight. He's talked about it. I mean, obviously, I want to see Frankie Edgar fight Conor McGregor. I think he's a good matchup against Conor McGregor, but I mean, he's a bad matchup against Holdy Aldo. So I really think there's a lot of interesting fights at 135 for Edgar. Obviously, you got the champion Cruz. You got Dillashaw, Rafael Sunshao, Cody Garbrandt's a star. That's a guy he could challenge. That'd be a great number one contender fight. I mean, there's young prospects, Jimmy Rivera, Thomas Almeida, Aljamain Sterling. You got John Dodson. You got what the hell is it? Michael McDonald, who's the guy who just beat him. Who just beat McDonald? Can't think of his name. The Brazilian.
Linker.
John Lineker. I mean, there's so many. There's so many guys for Frankie Edgar to get a shot at that I would love to see. Now the other one that leaves, I keep hearing, is Max Holloway. Well, if McGregor fights Aldo, Holloway versus Pettis. But to me, the problem is if you put McGregor versus Aldo and you put Holloway versus Pettis, immediately you eliminate one of the title contenders. And if McGregor decides go to lightweight, you only have one really contender in that weight class. If McGregor leaves 145 and Edgar goes down to bantamweight, you've really a thin at 145 now, and there's not too many interesting fights after Aldo versus winner of Pettis and Holloway. I'm sorry, not Pettis. Aldo and Pettis Holloway. I'm screwed up. Sorry. So I would really like to work him in slowly, let him get used to that weight class. I'd probably put him against like a Ricardo Lamas or maybe even a Dennis Bermudez. I know Dennis Bermudez might be a step back, but I don't want to rush Pettis because I think he is still a star there that you could find, and I think a McGregor versus Pettis fight in the future would be huge. And I also think Aldo versus Pettis would be a big fight. If people forget, there was a time where Pettis was talking about dropping down to featherweight, and they were actually scheduled to fight each other, Aldo and Pettis. I don't know if you remember, this is years ago now. Before he actually won the lightweight title, he was talking about dropping down. So there's a lot of exciting fights for Pettis. I'm rambling too long, so too long.
10-second blocks.
Go back to just a quick point. Like you were saying, Pettis was supposed to fight the winner of Frankie Edgar versus Greg Maynard, and that's when it went to the draw. So then Dana White did
that's right.
Maynard 3, and then Pettis fought Guida, and he lost. So that kind of derailed everything. But he was supposed to get the winner of Maynard Edgar 2, but didn't happen.
Yeah. See, Justin, this is why I wanted to bring in Dave. He's got tons of knowledge. and he was supposed to fight Aldo too. So that's two. I mean, there's two opponents that he could fight. And don't get me wrong. If Dave picks Frankie Edgar versus, if Frankie Edgar fights Anthony Pettis next, I mean, listen, I'm an MMA fan. I want to see two of the best guys ever in the sport fight each other. So,
you got one of those guys right. I'll give you that. You got one right, and then I'll tell the next one may surprise you, but it's good.
All right. I hope you do surprise me.
All right, then moving on to the main event. Again, another main event that we'll spend more time talking about than it actually went on. Damian Maia won it by submission in the first round over Carlos Condit. Keith, on the last show, we were all talking. We think it'll go to decision. I think you and Jay were both. It'll grind out to a decision. I said Condit in the second round knockout. We were all wrong.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. Dave, what were your notes on that fight?
Well, I feel like Dana White's worst nightmare came true. That Maia won because no one likes watching him really fight. That's the problem. I mean, us, because we like the technicality of it.
Yeah.
But for selling fights, it's not what you want to see. I mean, he took him down in the first 40 seconds, and then you knew it was almost done. Unless Condit kind of just stayed close enough and then eventually got stood up. But obviously you knew that wasn't going to happen because when Maia gets you on the ground, you're not getting stood up. He's just going to work you till he gets the right submission in, or he'll keep switching back and forth. But Dana White's worst nightmare came true because I think he was hoping that Condit would finish him, and that didn't happen. And then he was hoping maybe Matt Brown would have done it to try to derail the Maia train because let's face it, we enjoy watching him fight, but the casual fan wants to see, I want to see the bloodbath, I want to see the knockout, which is what sells the pay-per-view and it sells, the buy rights. So I feel like I don't know if they're going to give him the shot yet. I mean, he was each one was ranked 3 and 4, so they're the top of the top guys, but I'm kind of sad that Condit did lose because I was hoping to see maybe he would win and then that would be it. He would retire. He would say, I won the belt, but it was the interim belt against Nick Diaz, so he did win a physical belt. So I was hoping he would be like, I did enough for the sport. My body can't take it. After that Lawler brawl, I mean, both guys were basically dying after the last round, which was a hell of a fight. So I don't know what they're going to do with Maia, if they're going to give him the shot or they're just going to give him another top 10 guy, like 1 or 2, just to hope that he loses. Because I feel like that's what Dana White wants, is he doesn't want Maia to win, but he keeps winning. So, I mean, I don't know how Keith feels about this, but I'm really curious to hear his opinion.
Well, Justin pointed out something about we all picking Condit, and I don't know if you remember, Justin, if we go back, I said I hated that matchup. I hated predicting the fight because I said no matter who wins, afterwards I'm going to say, yeah, of course I knew that was going to happen. That was exactly – I should have known that was – and and it's like Dave said, as soon as I didn't think it was over when Maya got the takedown, but as soon as Conor gave up his back, I was like, what are you doing? That is one of the dumbest things you could. I mean, I guess the other option is get punched in the face. I understand it. So I mean, but that to me, that's like waving the white flag. You give up David. You give your back up to David Meyer. David Meyer he's like an old school fighter. It's like going back to 1993 and 94, 95 and having this one-dimensional fighter who that if he gets you in his world, he's going to win. And to be doing that at this level, at the highest level now, it's crazy. When people debate who's the best jiu-jitsu guy to ever fight MMA, I mean, you have Jacare, you got Verdum, you got these guys that are fantastic, Hajar Gracie and
Romero.
Gracie. But when you add it to the MMA, Jacare adds punches, Verdum adds punches. Maya doesn't even punch you; he just grapples you and chokes you out, which to me is unbelievable. He's got underrated wrestling. I mean, he's taken down Chael Sonnen, who is a Olympic caliber wrestler. He's got functional striking. I mean, he's not a great striker, but it's not as bad as people pretend he is. But I just want to. What amazes me most about Maya is he almost makes people like seem helpless, like they feel helpless when you fight this guy. Matt Brown, the whole fight you could just see the frustration on his face. He could do absolutely nothing against him. He's got Carlos Condit, who earlier this year arguably won the belt. He arguably beat the champion Robbie Lawler. He's got that guy questioning if he can even fight in this level anymore. That's what this guy does. He doesn't just beat you; he demoralizes you. I got a number. Tell me, I'm a little trivia because me and Dave love doing trivia. So I'm gonna throw a trivia question at, and I would be crazy impressed if you guys get this because I just heard this the other day. What is the number 12? Why is that significant to Damian Maya?
How many first round stoppages he has? I don't know.
No, that's a good guess though.
I don't know. How many total minutes he's been on the ground in a UFC fight?
No, that's a good guess too. 12 is the number of significant strikes Damian Maya has been hit with his last 4 fights combined. He fought Neil Magny, according to Fight Metric. He fought Neil Magny, and he went 8 or 9 minutes. He took him to the second round and then eventually submitted him. Neil Magny didn't land one significant strike that fight. He went against Gunnar Nelson, went to the decision. Gunnar Nelson landed 2 significant strikes the whole fight. Matt Brown, he went to the very end of the 3rd round, 10 significant strikes, and Carlos Condit 0. So in 4 fights, he had 12 significant strikes landed on him. A guy like Diego Sanchez gets hit 12 times in 15 seconds. So that to me is that he just took out 4 guys ranked top 15 or higher, some guys top 5, and he only got hit 12 significant times in 4 fights. And some of those fights went pretty deep. I also want to read you this. I wrote this down. I want to read you this list. All right. Renato Verissimo, Frank Trigg, Jake Shields, Jake Ellenberger, Rory McDonald, Dan Hardy, Dong Young Kim, Nick Diaz, George St. Pierre, Johnny Hendricks, Martin Kampmann twice, Thiago Alves, and Robbie Lawler. Those are all the guys that Carlos Condit, significant names that Carlos Condit has fought. And none of those guys stopped Carlos Condit. I mean, you got George St. Pierre, arguably the greatest fighter of all time. You got Robbie Lawler, our former title champion. Johnny Hendricks, a former title champion. Jake Shields, Frank Trigg, Nick Diaz, Dan Hardy, Rory McDonald. All these guys that have fought for the title. Anybody who remember Verissimo, real stud, mid 2000s fighter that was challenging Matt Hughes and Frank Trigg and stuff. Dong Young Kim, a great judo fighter. Jake Ellenberger, a grinder in the UFC. None of these guys have been able to stop Carlos Condit, and Damian Maia takes him out in, what, 100 seconds? Less than 2 minutes? I know people don't like watching him fight, but to me, that is mind-boggling. Like, I don't understand how you not. To me, it's like saying oh, I like art, but I don't like Picasso, or I like music, but I don't like Beethoven. This guy's a master at what he does. He's the greatest jiu-jitsu guy in MMA in history. And to me, it's laughable if you bring up anybody else. And I understand that there's guys that can reach his level and accolades in the jiu-jitsu world. But when you take Gunnar Nelson, who has competed in Abu Dhabi and has won international tournaments, big international tournaments, and you make him look like a white belt, and he lands 2 significant shots in a 15-minute fight, this is something special that's going on. And it's weird. I almost want Damian Maia to win the title just for the casual fans who only want to see strike. If you only want to see striking, then go watch boxing. All right? Because Damian Maia, he's a once-in-a-lifetime guy. Will he win the title? I mean, I think we'll kind of get into that next. But I kind of hope he does.
All right, and anything else about that main card, guys?
I'd like to know what you guys think about Maia if we match him up with either Tyron Woodley
or Thompson. Woodley or Thompson.
Yeah, how do you think he would do?
It's tough to say. Anytime I really think about a guy who strikes as well as someone like Thompson, Condit, and I thought Condit would win by a second round knockout, but like you said, Maia just takes away your he extinguishes you more than is, I guess, the best word I can use to describe it. Before you even really get started, it's weird. I'd like to say it's a bad matchup for him, but every time you look at it, he proves you wrong. So why not throw it out there? Let's see what happens.
How would you feel he'd do against Woodley?
Woodley, I think it'd be a boring fight.
I agree with that.
I could see him winning in the same smothering fashion. I could see him winning, but I don't know. Until with Maia, I'm at the point where until he's in there and it's happening, I don't know what's going to happen.
I feel like with Maia versus Woodley, Maia would just wait till that second round and Woodley starts to get gassed and then just take him down. And then same thing he did to Condit, just bite his time, just wait, kind of just do the hand control. And then once he gets his back, I feel like that's it. Because there's no stopping this guy. Like Keith was saying, he's, the best of the era that we've seen. And it's just kind of tough because it's like you don't really want him to win, but you can't stop him from winning because he's unstoppable. I mean, I feel like that he would definitely beat Woodley, maybe by like a third round submission or a second round submission, unless Woodley. There's always that puncher's chance. Like that's what they kept saying against Lawler. It's like everyone has the puncher's chance. Now with Wonder Boy, I feel like the same thing will happen. I feel like he's just gonna just wait till just to dive in, grab for double leg, and then just take him down, and then just grind and grind and grind until eventually he gets the the decision win, or he sinks in a submission or an armbar or something, But I don't know what Dana White is gonna do, or also not even Dana White. I don't even know what Joe Silva's gonna do, and he's even leaving. So now we don't know who's gonna be making the matchmaker fights going forward. So it's tough to even say. They may just not even put him on there because the new person may be like, oh, I don't like the style you do. I want a puncher in there. I'm putting Woodley versus Wonder Boy because that's going to sell more than you holding a guy down for 25 minutes. We don't know what the future of the UFC is going to be now that Joe Silva left. He was there since UFC 3 making these matches. I mean, what's your thought, Keith?
Well, on that situation, before I forget, I'm assuming Sean Shelby, who's been doing all the weight classes below 155 in the women's weight classes, I'm assuming he'll probably take over and do all of them. I don't know. But when we talk about Maia, well, I get the Maia versus Thompson first. Um, to to me, that's an either. It could go either way. It really depends on who establishes their will. I mean, right away I think of the Johnny Hendricks, how hard time Johnny Hendricks had taking down Thompson, how hard of a time Roy McDonald had taking down Thompson. So I can see where Damian Maia does. The problem with Damian Maia's style is that people are so paranoid of his takedowns that they don't engage. And they stay away, and they let him slowly back you up to the cage, then shoots in. And if he took Stephen Thompson down, I think we're looking at a counterfight. Now, Stephen Thompson's his striking is out of this world. So if he landed something, got a flurry, I could see it happen. But stylistically, I think Tyron Woodley is actually a tougher matchup for Maia than Thompson. Now, I think either guy could beat Maia. But Tyron Woodley was an All-American wrestler. So I think Damian Maia would have a harder time taking him down. Now, Dave makes a great point about as the fight goes on that he could get the takedown, which I think could happen. But and Damian Maia's already taken down. I mean, he did a lazy lateral drop to Chael Sonnen, who's an even higher level wrestler than Tyron Woodley. So I mean, it could happen. But Tyron Woodley is when Damian Maia has been knocked out, it's been a guy who snaps on a second and lands that shot. Nate Marquardt is the one that immediately comes to my mind when Nate Marquardt knocked him out with a punch that he just closed the distance, and that's Tyron Woodley's game, is closing distance, lulls you to sleep, and then bam, lands that big shot. So stylistically, I think I could see Tyron Woodley beating him, but I know for a fact that either one of those fights, I am not betting on it. I am not betting against Damian Maia because of how fantastic. I mean, I'm a fan of his. I don't know how people aren't. Could you imagine if Damian Maia went into UFC 1 instead of Royce Gracie? Like you have the legendary of what Royce Gracie did, and Royce Gracie couldn't tie the belt, the jiu-jitsu belt around Damian Maia. It's not even close. Royce Gracie is a white belt compared to Damian Maia. I always think when I see him fight, I say, could you imagine if you put Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn against Damian Maia, and if Royce Gracie's submitting, could you imagine what Damian Maia would have done? I think he's fantastic. I'd like to see him win the belt.
All right, and after that, guys, it's kind of a good segue into what I want to get into next. We talk about matchmaking and Silva being out the door. Let's put together a five-fight main card for UFC 205 and see what you guys got. Dave, I know you had one that Keith already started to guess a little early, so I'm going to let you go ahead and do yours and get them out of the way before Keith can spoil anything else.
Okay, now I did this as authentic as possible. The guys I have lined up now do not currently have a fight that has been announced yet. So I didn't I didn't jump like, oh, I want to pick this guy from that one. This is realistically, these guys are not scheduled for a fight as far as I know from 2 days ago. So I'll give it to you from my top 5. So my first fight of the night in the bantamweight, I got Aljamain Sterling versus Eddie Wyland. So I went with a New York boy to try to get the Madison Square Garden crowd pumping, and then I think Sterling wants to redeem himself after losing to Brian Caraway, and then Eddie Wyland just put on a hell of a performance against Frankie Sands. So I feel like these two could really light up the crowd, get the New York vibe going against Aljamain Sterling. I feel like that could be a hell of a fight. I don't know who would win it, but I feel like it would go to the decision, and maybe I would go for Sterling on that one. So that's how I would start the card for my UFC 205. And then my fourth fight on the card, I have Anthony Pettis versus Cub Swanson. I feel like you can't, like Keith was saying, you can't give Pettis Edgar yet. You have to get him a decent guy. Cub Swanson's, 2 wins in a row. Likes to bang, and I feel like they would put on a hell of a fight because they're just going to keep trading back and forth. So I feel like that would be a good fight on the card to have. And I think Pettis would win that fight, though, but I think it would be hell of a fight just to watch for it. You know, the excitement factor. So that's my first two to start off the card. You want me just to keep going until I get the everything, or you want to break down each one individually?
No, go ahead and keep going. I love that Swanson versus Pettis fight. That's awesome.
Okay, my third fight, rematch, Luke Rockhold versus Chris Weidman 2. Now, none of them have fights lined up. I feel like they have to fight each other again eventually. Why not do it in Weidman's backyard? You know, he'll have Matt Serra and Lungo there. I mean, I was almost going to do Matt Serra versus GSP 3, but then I said that would be stupid because no one wants to watch that. But Luke Rockhold versus Weidman 2, I feel like it has to go down, and I feel like it'll happen the same way. I think Rockhold will just pick him apart again, and you know, I'm trying to get the New York flavor in there. I didn't want to overload it with too many stars because, God forbid, if someone goes down, it's going to hinder the card. It'll just be like UFC 200 again. So I didn't want to just stack it with superstars after superstars because if I'm Dana White, I have to periodically, you know, I can't use everyone in this card because then the next card's just going to be terrible. So that was my mindset going into this. So match number 3 in the middleweight, Luke Rockhold versus Weidman 2. I think Rockhold will take the decision again. Okay. Number 2, the co-main event. This one I feel like you guys may disagree with, but Dominic Cruz versus Cody Garbrandt. I feel like they could really hype up this fight with the trash talk element. You know, New York people, they love the trash talk. I feel like they can do a lot of great promo work with these two to build them up. Because I know a lot of people don't really know, you know, Cody yet, but I feel like if they package him right with the promos and the stare downs, kind of similar how they did with, you know, when they took Aldo and Edgar around the world, but not, you know, not around the world, but just package those two together because they do not like each other whatsoever. And the UFC has to play on that for money-wise to build up this fight, and I think it'll be a great fight. I think Cruz would win it, though. I feel like he would just use his will and just destroy Cody. But I would love to see that fight. You know, they're already at each other's throats, and nothing's even been scheduled yet. But I don't know if Cody's up to that title contender yet. But then again, you could talk your way into a title fight. Anybody can do it. So I feel like that's where I'm going with that one for my number 2. And then my main event, I have to do it. You got to do DC versus Rumble Johnson. You can't trust John Jones anymore. As you know, he's done. And you need the biggest fight on the card. I know GSP is supposedly coming back, but you know that's just rumors until you see otherwise. So I have to do fights that are almost as guaranteed with this one. So I had to do DC versus Rumble Johnson and for the heavyweight strap. And I think it'll play out like the first one unless Rumble Johnson just hits you like he did with Teixeira. So I feel like I would go DC by submission, maybe round 2, maybe wait until Rumble gets gassed. But if Rumble hits you once, like he did with Glover Teixeira, you're just waking up now, for Christ's sake. So that's my UFC 205 card, and let me know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think that's a. I didn't know we were picking Fight Pass cards. I think.
Oh.
Which one is the first one? The first one, I know it's tough. That one could be, you know, but.
Nah, I was just kidding.
People would pay $10
I'm gonna kind of give him my critique of his, and then I can let him do the same to mine. What was the first one? Aljamain Sterling, Eddie Wineland. I got no issue with that fight. I just think, and I definitely think that is a realistic fight that could happen. I think we would have a heavy load of New York people on this card. I just see that more as a Fox Sports prelims fight. I don't think that'll make the main card. And the reason why I don't think it's going to make the main card is I think 205 is going to be as big as 200. I think that's their plan. I think it's definitely their plan after 200 flops. I know 202, really helped them, but after everything that went wrong with 200, I think they're really going to load up 205. And I've heard for a while the rumor that's going to be huge. His second fight, what was the second fight?
Cub Swanson versus Anthony Pettis.
Pettis and Swanson, I love that fight. Actually, stylistically, that's a fantastic fight. I mean, when you got, they're both flashy, do this crazy stuff. So that right there, I could see them both trying crazy spin kicks and cartwheel kicks and all kinds of stuff. But also I could see that main event in the Fox Sport prelims. Also, I don't think that makes the main card. It could be an opener. So the third fight, Wyman versus Rockhold. I mean, obviously that's a main event caliber fight. I expect the top 3 fights to be main event caliber fights, because that's what 200 was lined up to be. My issue with Rockhold won the last fight, and to me, Wyman's a star after he beat Anderson Silva twice. I really think the UFC wants to get him back on a winning streak. And to me, if I'm Rockhold, I'm not taking a fight in New York City against Wyman. You won the last fight, so why you should have the advantage. Wyman should have to fight Rockhold in California, not the other way around. Second from the top, Cody Garbrandt versus Dominic Cruz. I mean, I definitely understand the selling point from that. My issue is I don't think Garbrandt deserves a title fight over TJ Dillashaw. I don't think he's ready. I hope they don't rush him. I don't want to see what happened to Michael McDonald happen to him. And I'll get to the main event. So my card, I kind of tried to structure it similar to UFC 200. They had 3 title fights and a super fight, so I kind of tried be somewhat similar. My first fight is a fight that's already rumored, so it's kind of cheating. But as soon as I heard it, I was like, oh, my God, we got to have this. And that's Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone. Opening the fight, two fan favorites, two guys that just you can't put warrant fights with those 2 guys. So I started off with that. My second fight is I did the New York field too. I put Chris Weidman on it. I gave him Yoel Romero. I gave him a guy that I expect him to beat, but also a guy who's flashy with big knockouts. You got the gold medalist in the Olympics. Built like Zach. So I think it's a fight to get Chris Weidman a win in his hometown. The third fight, I originally, and I tried doing this like Dave too, try to be more realistic. I put George St. Pierre versus Anderson Silva. That was the fight. I figured if you're ever going to get that title, get the dream fight that they've been happening, it's got to happen now. Unfortunately, on UFC Tonight, George St. Pierre revealed about the USADA testing. He wouldn't be eligible to fight till December. So I scrapped that fight. I kept a New York feel too. I put John Jones in, and I didn't give him DC, and I didn't give him Anthony Johnson. And I'll get to this because I know Dave's going to critique this. I think a Gustafsson rematch, and I know Gustafsson fighting tomorrow, but I think the timetable for Gustafsson, if he wins, that's a huge fight. People want the rematch. I don't think John Jones deserves a title fight with all the stuff that's been going on with him. So let's have one of the best fights in UFC history. Let's run it back. Number 2, in John Jones' hometown. Not even though he's from upstate New York, but in New York State. I had a couple backup plans, and my backup plans, because obviously you don't know what's going on with USADA, if that's even an option, if John Jones is not an option. I thought of 2 other fights that could fill in. I wanted them to be title fights because I think you should have like 3 huge fights. So one is Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. I thought it'd be nice. And this is not my picks. These are my fill-ins in case John Jones. And the other one would be Dominic Cruz versus TJ Dillashaw too. So those are 2 like fill-in if John Jones is not eligible. My co-main event is what Dave said: Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Johnson. Running back. You got the scariest hitter in UFC versus the champion. I think the problem with that as the main event is Daniel Cormier doesn't sell fights, and Anthony Johnson, they don't sell fights, and I really think they're going to tap into either McGregor or Rousey for this card, the star power. So my wife's in the background making noise. So the main event, I put the biggest star in the UFC. I put him in the main event of Madison. I put Conor McGregor, the biggest star in the UFC. I put him against the second biggest star in the UFC. So I put Conor McGregor versus Ronda Rousey, main event. No, I don't believe this fight deserves to happen, but to me, you need a monumental night. I put Conor McGregor going against Eddie Alvarez. You got the Philly guy, not too far from New York City. Conor McGregor trying to win 2 titles. I can't see UFC 205 not having Conor McGregor on it. So that's my card. Go ahead, Dave. Pick me apart.
No, you make my card look like it's a UFC Ottawa, just a piece of garbage. But no, I mean, I feel like you definitely need the 3 because you need to make up for the 200 flop. I mean, I feel like you definitely need the 3 fights, but is Romero still suspended, or is he eligible to fight
His
still?
suspension's up. His suspension's up.
His suspension's okay,
Yeah.
but
Because
yeah, I mean, I feel
he
like
got 6 months for it.
I feel like you definitely. I agree with you. You need to have the biggest guy on the card. So I guess you have to have McGregor, and you have to like with me, you have to pepper in the New York guy. So you have to get Jones, but how can you trust him? I mean, it's so tough because you want to believe in him, but yeah, he lets you down every time, and you can't
Yeah.
keep because it costs millions of dollars to make new promos every time.
Yeah.
So if you book John Jones for this, and then 3 weeks later he breaks his leg or something, doing something stupid, he's let you down again and again, and
Yeah.
that's why I didn't want to trust John Jones on my card because I can't have that, because it basically just he ruins cards. He ruined UFC 151. That didn't even happen.
Yeah.
UFC 200. He ruined that one because everyone wanted to see that. UFC, what was it, 197? He was supposed to fight Cormier.
Yeah.
Kind of made up for it, but still, he
But
ruins.
197. Hold on, 197 wasn't his fault. Cormier dropped out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's still a jerk. He still ruined it for us because we had to pay for him to fight Orban St. Peru instead of him fighting DC. So he still ruined that one. But other than that, I feel like you went huge, and I feel like you have to go huge for 205 because you have to make up for everything. But do you think if you go huge for 205, the next couple cards are gonna?
Well, yeah. I mean, like I said, the reason why I was willing to put John Jones, and this is like you said, this is coming off if it's even realistic. This is if what happens, USADA. There's a very, very good chance that doesn't happen. That's why I had these other 2 backup fights. The reason why I was willing to put John Jones on this card is the fact that I have Conor McGregor on it. That this fight will sell no matter what.
Yeah.
I really think they want a card. They wanted 200 to beat UFC 100. So I wanted to load this up to try to have a record-breaking numbers. With being realistic, I mean, I could have kept going. Ronda Rousey versus Cyborg. I mean, I didn't want to do too unrealistic. And I also didn't want to do the same thing where you said with guys that didn't fit in the time frame. I know one thing, Chris Wyman's a little banged up, so I don't know if he would even be eligible time frame wise. But the only reason I was trusting John Jones is if John Jones dropped out, you would still have Conor McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez right there that'll sell. Daniel Cormier versus Anthony Johnson. The third fight now would bump up the Chris Weidman versus Yoel Romero. Now this is if it happened and you didn't replace it with the other 2 fights. And if this happened, days ahead, you'd have Robbie Lawler versus Donald Cerrone, and then you pump up like you said, Anthony Pettis versus Cub Swanson or Aljamain Sterling versus Eddie. You'd have, because I expect the undercard to be loaded too.
Yeah, definitely.
I expect it to be, and your card. I understand what you're trying to do. You want to save stars. Because Conor McGregor, you don't have to put him on 200, 205, because he's going to sell. You put him on 206, and he's got a huge sell.
Well, UFC 205 is going to sell out, I think, anyway, because you want to see the first ever MMA fight in Madison Square Garden. So no matter what, I feel like you want to make this as big as possible, but then again, you can scale back a little bit because everyone's going to want to see it. I mean, that's going to sell out, I think, the fastest probably pay-per-view in existence for New York.
It's going to be huge. I mean, I just think your card is a loaded card, but they've had loaded cards before.
Yeah. It
comes down to if they want to make it historic. If they want to, if they're viewing this as historic, I think they go on my card. If they want to use this, I mean, 206. It sounds like George St. Pierre is going to headline in December. So then you got 207. McGregor could do that one. 208. Ronda Rousey. I mean, there's a lot of things. I could see them using Jones, not even putting him on pay-per-view, but use him on Fox, main Fox fights until he proves that he can be clean. I just tried to think of a historic card, like basically an equivalent to UFC 200 was supposed to be.
Yeah, but I mean, I would definitely enjoy watching your card. I feel like that's. But now we just have to see. It's like what I was saying earlier. It's like with the matchmaker gone. I mean, now I feel like they're just going to do money fights. I feel like the rankings are just going to be out of the way. They're just going to see which fights can get us the most amount of money. and I feel like that's what's going to happen now that the UFC's changed hands. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I really don't know. I don't know what the change is going to be. I don't know. I just expect UFC 205 to not have Amanda Nunes main eventing. I
Definitely.
expect that. If a girl main events, it's going to be Ronda Rousey, which seems unlikely too. But if a girl headlines, it's going to be Ronda Rousey.
I mean, do you think they have to put a girl card on there no matter what?
I think they'd at least put a girl card at least on the undercard fights. On the main, I could see it. I'm trying to think of the people if you're going on the main card, it's going to have to be a star. Not a star, but a name value. Maybe Misha Tate makes it, or Holly Holm. Someone like they might do the Amanda Nunes on the card. Juliana Pena, that could happen. Or I mean Paige Van Zandt. I can see Paige Van Zandt being on the New York card.
No, you were getting into how quickly it would sell out, Dave. I could let you know that I'm checking every day to see when these tickets are going on sale. I'm going. Well, I don't know how it's going to be or any
Justin,
of that yet. I don't know anyone who's fighting, but as soon as they go on sale, I'm going.
Justin, how far are you from New York City?
New York City, about an hour and a half, realistically with traffic. Probably New York traffic, probably 3 hours, but about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I might be going with you. I have to sleep at your house or something.
But yeah, definitely been checking that out. As always, there's rumors with McGregor, huge fight announcement coming up, but that's always a rumor, so I don't read too much into it. But I'm assuming it's UFC 205 related.
Because he got pretty banged up, so I mean the timetable should be that he should be prime and ready to go for 205. So that's probably the big announcement is, we don't know who it's going to be, but
He's available.
Yeah,
he's available to fight.
I mean, to me, McGregor, it's either going to be McGregor versus Aldo or McGregor versus Eddie Alvarez. The fact that they haven't named Eddie Alvarez won the title a couple months back, and the fact that they haven't named a lightweight title fight yet kind of makes me thinking that McGregor's an option.
All right, so we got the. I'm going to say, Keith, I actually like Dave's card a little bit better. Like Dave's card, but I think yours would get more buys. I will say that.
Go screw yourself.
I think yours would get more buys. I'd rather watch Dave's.
Next time I'll put Ed Herman on there and Sam Alvey.
Sam Alvey and Herman.
Charlie Brenneman coming. Matt Serra, GSP3. Co-main event.
That would have been great if you said Matt Serra, GSP3.
Well, we each got one on them. That's how you end the trilogy. If each guy has one win.
Get Matt Serra warm-up fight against Stoney Carter. Finish that trilogy, and then Matt Serra wins, or Matt Serra versus Chris Lytle. Finish that trilogy.
Well, Matt Serra was saying the only way he would come out of retirement is if they did it in Madison Square Garden. So the dream came true. So we'll see.
Last time I saw Matt Serra, he looked like a freaking heavyweight. So, let me see it.
Matt Serra versus Derek Lewis.
Yeah. In New York City.
All right, we're going to slide on over to the next Fight Pass main card. Entirely on Fight Pass, this Arlovsky versus Barnett fight. 3 p.m., one of them early afternoon ones. A little weird, but it's in Germany. So, what do you guys think for this Arlovsky-Barnett fight?
Well, I was with Keith, and he said that this fight, I'm pretty sure he said this, that if this was 97, this would be the fight that every fan would be clamoring to hear.
Oh, yeah. 2003, 2004. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But, I mean, I think Barnett's going to take it. I feel like Barnett's going to try to take him down. I feel like he wants to make up for the fact, Barnett, that he got submitted by Ben Rothwell. So I feel like he wants to show that he's great at his ground game that it once was. So I feel like he's just going to try to take Arlovsky down and then submit him. And then if that happens, I feel like Arlovsky's gone because that'll be 3 fights in a row that he's lost in a brutal fashion if he does get submitted, I would say.
Yeah, I hate this fight. Like this.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's in 2007, 2008. This fight would have been great. I mean, both guys in their primes would have been a huge sell. This would sell a pay-per-view all by itself. Now, this is to me like when you ask who'd win, you give the Ken Shamrock Royce Gracie trilogy, and so, like who cares? Both guys are way past their prime. You know what? I'm gonna make a prediction. In their prime, Josh Barnett wins. All right, that's my prediction. In their prime, Josh Barnett wins. Josh Barnett, he's bigger than Arlovsky. He's a much better ground fighter. Not that Arlovsky's a slouch, but Barnett was a good wrestler, real good jiu-jitsu game with his catch wrestling style. I think he had the harder strikes, even though Arlovsky was a more technical striker. But he had a way better chin. Arlovsky's never had a chin. He got knocked out by like a slap from Tim Sylvia in their second fight. It was like a love tap. Now who's gonna win? I don't know. It's Arlovsky for Alice Overeem last, and he got knocked out, and Arlovsky's had a horrible chin. He's got one of the most famous shitty chins in history. The one thing about him is he somewhat still has speed, not like he did in 2003, but he's not a turtle, but he's like a car with a really bad flat tire.
Well, are you going to watch this fight? I mean, do you have to watch it?
Oh, of course I will.
Because it's going to be a train wreck, like when it was Kimbo versus Ken Shamrock. You just have to watch to see how bad it's going to be.
Yeah, wait till we're breaking it down next week on the on this show. It's gonna be we're gonna have tons of viewers for that one. Andre Arlovsky, like I said, there was a moment in the Alistair Overeem fight in the beginning where he had a little flurry on Overeem, so that he has shown some kind of fighting. I never believed in that Arlovsky comeback. I never believed in it. I thought he lost a shitty fight to Mayer. I thought he lost to Brandon Schaub the first fight. So he's somewhat still athletic. Josh Barnett's last fight against Ben Rothwell just looked like a guy who just said, I'm showing up for a paycheck. He looked so slow. And it's sad because Josh Barnett was a pretty talented. He's probably a top 5, top 7 heavyweight of all time. And great on the mic. He's Sam Alvey level on the mic. I guess I'll take just for a debate. I'll take Arlovsky. I'll take Arlovsky in boring decision. But you know what? Who knows? Maybe Barnett might blow on him and knock out Arlovsky.
Finger flick his nose.
This reminds me of that movie with Sylvester Stallone and who was it? Which one was it? Robert De Niro did a boxing match against each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'd rather watch. I would much rather watch a real life fight between Sylvester Stallone and Robert De Niro than this. So
you said this is a fight you're going to stay away from betting wise?
Yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I would never trust Arlovsky's chin, and Barnett. He looks so. I mean, he gets choked out by Ben Rothwell, who was holding his hands down here when he was fighting. And like holding, not even lower. I can't get it. He's holding them like here. And I don't know. Whoever.
Yeah, I was there for that Rothwell fight. They were walking out. I was like, man, I really don't want to watch this. And I was so happy that he got choked out because it ended it sooner.
Whoever loses, please retire, and then give the other one to get knocked out by Derek Lewis. Or maybe, you know what? Maybe the winner of this fight could fight Matt Serra.
Good.
All right, that's about all that we have for the show.
Who you got? Justin, hold on. Justin, who you got?
Who do I have?
Which train wreck you taking?
Rothwell.
This should be like, I feel like this is predicting like San Francisco 49ers versus the Cleveland Browns preseason game.
Yeah, something like that. No, I'll go Barnett.
All right.
Just because. Hopefully round 1 knockout, and then I can go finish up my afternoon doing something else.
Well, luckily it's so early that it doesn't ruin your whole day, this fight. So that's the only thing actually going for it. You still have time to do something at night afterwards.
Yeah, before we forget, there's a new period for the Pick'em League starting up tomorrow for tomorrow's fights. There's 2 spots left in the DraftKings League. Hopefully it gets filled tonight. I'm not going to be promoting much tomorrow because I'm working. me and Zach will have a great debate coming up for the Al Overeem, Stevie Miocic card.
Are you guys doing CM Punk versus Mickey Gall?
That should be the real main event.
I'll let well, I want one.
You'll let Zach take Punk?
Yeah. I'll let so Dave has a WWF live cast or whatever. You want to promote that real quick?
Yeah, me and Mike, we do one. It's just it's on my YouTube channel, David's Parmcast. We just talk about different wrestling stuff that's coming up, and we'll be talking about that fight, even though I feel like that's a worse train wreck than Arlovsky versus Barnett. But they're pumping with the promos. They're putting them on the promos,
Yeah.
which makes they basically did a documentary series about him.
I know, I saw it.
Being about to be murdered.
I meant to watch that just so I could see AJ Lee again.
Oh yeah, she's beautiful. That's the only reason why I want to watch the fight, is just to see her walk out. Other than that, I mean, he's gonna lose in the first 2 minutes anyway.
So Dave, if people want to check out your YouTube, what's the name?
It's David's Parmcast, Parmcast.
Say it again.
David's Parmcast. I used to do a thing where I eat different chicken parms from the state and I would critique them. So that was my first show. I still do it every once in a while, but I felt like it was hindering my health, so I had to really scale back. So
and look at you now.
TV.
And look at you now.
Look at me now. I'm hitting the stars. I'm the new CM Punk.
Yeah, you went from chicken parm to sports talk. Look at you.
I know.
Shooting for the stars.
I know.
So hey, real quick, if someone doesn't watch your chicken parm podcast, who you picking? You're a WWF expert. Who you picking? CM Punk or Mickey Gall?
You got to go Gall, just for experience-wise. I mean, if you saw the footage of...
He's got one fight, and he's got 2 fights.
Yeah, I mean, but the experience is what matters. Being actually in the octagon, CM Punk's, I think, like 43 years old or something. It's just going to be the worst fight, I feel like. He's just going to look like a chicken with his head cut off.
37.
I'm taking CM Punk with Bobby the Brain Heenan jumping in and hitting Mickey Gall with a steel chair.
I want you to next time on this. I want you to actually bet on that fight. I want you to pick an actual.
I will bet
the CM Punk Mickey Gall fight.
We will make a prediction next one. I promise you, we will make a prediction. As long as Justin makes a prediction too.
I want you to put money down on this one.
Prediction great.
I'll make a prediction right now.
I will bet $20 if you can find someone pick CM Punk. I'll bet $20. It'd be great if WWE was in with UFC and this all was a big fake, and all of a sudden Mickey Gall and CM Punk are clotheslining each other and doing drop kicks and shit. Someone pushes John McCarthy over, or clotheslines John McCarthy, and friggin' Herbie
he lives on the mat helpless.
running in to get the submission.
We know we're all in trouble if CM Punk starts climbing the cage to drop some elbows. Then we're in for some trouble.
He climbs the cage just to get out and leave. I won.
Yeah. Anyways, some people, we had our highest viewership last week. I don't expect I think that had a Conor McGregor effect, and obviously Jay Martin, everyone loves him. A lot of people, we've been tagging on our Facebook pages. If anybody's wondering what Sports Talk is, that's a sports group on Facebook. Justin's actually one of the bosses of it. If you'd like to check it out, just let one of us know, and we'll add you to the group.
All right, and in closing, that's all we got, everybody. Keith, Dave, thank you for being on the show. I feel like it was a great show, as always, but we'll see how the viewers feel. Right, thanks for being on, guys, and until next week, later.
See ya.
Bye.